The court said, and the prosecutor may call its next.
Mr. Finkel said, the government calls Wei Chen.
Witness sworn.
The court said, please state your name and spell it, and speak into the microphone.
The witness said, my name is Wei Chen, spelled as Wei and Chen.
The court said, so I need you to speak even louder than that so that everyone can hear you. You may inquire.
Mr. Finkel said, thank you, Your Honor.
Wei Chen, called as a witness by the government, having been duly sworn, testified as follows. Direct examination. By Mr. Finkel.
So, Ms. Chen, further to what the judge was saying, you can just point the microphone directly actually at your mouth, so it picks up the sound, okay? Feel free to move it. You can move that top piece, so it's pointed directly at your mouth. Thank you. Ms. Chen. Where were you born?
I was born in China.
And when did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States in 2007.
Why did you come to the United States?
For a master's degree.
Did you obtain a master's degree?
Yes.
In what?
Master of Business Administration.
What state do you live in now?
Virginia.
What do you do for work?
I work in a bank. I help the bank manage the risk, including operational risk, financial risk, and reputational risk.
Ms. Schrofa said, I'm sorry. I didn't catch the last one.
Mr. Finkel said, reputational risk. Ms. Chen, were you ever a follower of Miles Guo?
Yes.
Are you a follower of Miles Guo today?
No.
Why not?
Because he's a liar, he's a fraudster.
Ms. Chen, when did you first learn about Miles Guo?
In 2007.
2007?
Sorry. 2017.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, could we approach for a moment?
The court said, all right.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, I'm hearing a tremendous amount of scoffing and cackling from the gallery, more than normal. I don't know why that is, but it's not appropriate. And I don't want to do this in public in front of everyone. But at some point I'd ask the court to just remind the gallery to settle down.
The court said, I have heard the same thing, and I'm going to tell them to stop vocalizing.
Mr. Finkel said, Thank you.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, is the court planning to tell them in front of the jury? I would.
The court said, the jury is sitting here listening to them make remarks and laugh and ridicule.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, I just walked in. I have not been here all morning. So I was not focused. I actually couldn't see the person, so I was trying to get that thing down, but...
Mr. Finkel said, It's happened throughout this trial. It's never been a big deal. This is to a different degree. That's why I wanted to tell Your Honor.
The court said yes. I am going to let them know that right now. I have been very upset with the way that some individuals have been chatting and making faces. Some have even come in with sunglasses on. So I am going to say something now.
In open court.
The court said, I'm now addressing myself to those of you who are sitting in the gallery, in the audience, on the benches. I do not want to hear laughing or any chatter. If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave. Please go ahead.
Mr. Finkel said, Thank you, Your Honor.
By Mr. Finkel.
Ms. Chen, you said you first learned about Miles Guo in 2017. How did you first learn about Miles Guo?
My husband was listening to his YouTube videos and introduced him to me.
And did you yourself start listening to Miles Guo's YouTube videos?
Yes.
And when did you start watching Miles Guo's videos?
About end of 2018 or beginning of 2019, around that time period.
And in that time period, 2018 to 2019, what, generally speaking, was Miles Guo's message?
He was talking about bringing American values to China.
Ms. Schrofa said, Objection, Your Honor. I think she can only testify to her understanding of Mr. Guo's message.
The court said. She can testify as to what he stated. You may continue.
By Mr. Finkel.
Let me raise the question. Ms. Chen, when you started watching Miles Guo's videos, what was his message in 2018, 2019?
My understanding, the messaging I take away is bringing American values to China.
Did you agree with that message?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention, Ms. Chen, to June of 2020. Around that time, did Miles Guo mention something called the GTD private placement?
Yes.
And did you invest in the GTD private placement?
Yes.
Approximately how much money?
At the very beginning, approximately $200,000.
What did Miles Guo say, if anything, that caused you to invest at that time, around June 2020? In the GTD private placement?
Miles Guo promoted it as a very rare opportunity. He promoted it as a pre-public offering. That the followers can buy at $8 a share, and then when it goes to the public, the value would go up to 10 or 100. Even 1,000. So have very large returns. He also said the GTV investment is because the GTV business would have a bright future. It would be better than YouTube, Amazon. It is not just a social media platform, it would also allow connections. Like you can buy things from Amazon.com or eBay.com. It is going to be a very powerful platform. It's going to be successful. They're going to have huge returns.
Around that time, Ms. Chen, did Miles Guo say anything about whether it was risky or not risky to invest in the GTD private placement?
Not at all. Only returns, huge returns, zero risk.
That's what Miles Guo said.
That's exactly right.
And Ms. Chen, when you decided to invest in the GTD private placement, what was your understanding? Based on what Miles Guo said, about how that money that you invested would be used.
My understanding is that the money will be used to develop and grow GTV business, including acquiring the software, building of the structure to make the business successful. To be a competitor like YouTube, Amazon, eBay, and so on.
Ms. Chen, prior to your decision to invest in the GTD private placement, had you invested very much in the stock market?
No. I don't do risky investment.
Why did you decide to invest in the GTD private placement if you don't normally invest in stocks?
Because.
Ms. Schrofa said, objection. That is not what she said.
Mr. Finkel said, it's a question. Why did you decide to invest in the GTD private placement if you don't normally invest in stocks?
Ms. Schrofa said, she didn't say.
The court said. She didn't mention stocks specifically.
Ms. Schrofa said, yes, she did, and she said she doesn't invest in risky stock.
The court said correct.
I can clarify.
Let me ask the question, if I can. Ms. Chen, why did you decide to invest in the GTD private placement if you don't generally invest in risky stocks?
Because there's no risk. And I want to clarify. In my opinion, stock is a risky investment. So I don't invest in stock. GXBK5.
Mr. Finkel said, we can pull up what's in evidence as. Ms. Chen, prior to investing in the GTD private placement.
Sorry. I don't see anything showing up.
I know. I'm asking a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It should be on everyone's screen now.
Yeah, I see it now.
Have you seen this document before, Ms. Chen?
Yes.
Did you see this document before you invested in the GTD private placement?
Yes, I did.
Did you review it?
Yes, I did.
By the way, how did you get this document?
Miles Guo sent a link to this document to my husband via the WhatsApp chat.
after you reviewed, well withdrawn? Mr. Finkel said, we could turn to page 10. Do you see where it says 4? Use of proceeds?
Yes.
What was your understanding, after reviewing this use of proceeds? How money invested in the GTV private placement would be used?
It would be used according to the chart here. Of the percentage of the money to those activities as outlined in page 10.
And do you see where it says other, approximately 5%?
Yes.
What was your understanding of what other meant?
My understanding is some overhead costs, administrative, HR hiring.
Mr. Finkel said, if we can go to page 15. Ms. Chen, when you were considering investing in GTV, what was your understanding of what the G in GTV stood for?
My understanding was that's GTV.
And when you were considering whether to invest in the GTV private placement, what was your understanding of what, well withdrawn? Do you see at the bottom where it says 6.3 sponsor and advisor of GTV Media?
Yes.
Can you read what it says?
The sponsor and advisor of GTV Media, Mr. Wengue Gua,
aka Miles Gua, Ho Wan Kwok or Miles Kwok, is a billionaire, a successful businessman, and a dissident in China.
You can stop there. Ms. Chen, it says here that Mr. Gua is a billionaire. What factor, if any, did Miles Gua's claims of wealth influence your decision to invest in the GTV private placement?
It played a critical influence in my decision. That made me believe that he is a wealthy person and he has resources. And he emphasized about institutional investors investing GTV, that will make it successful.
It says here, Ms. Chen, that Mr. Gua is the sponsor and advisor of GTV Media. That's what it says in this document, based on your review of broadcasts that Mr. Gua had made. What was your understanding of Gua's role, if any, with GTV?
My understanding of his role is he owns it, he controls it, and he created it.
And that's based on the broadcasts you watched.
Yes.
Mr. Finkel said, if we can go to page 18? Or actually, excuse me, let's go to page 13. Page 12. Okay. You see where it says executive directors?
Yes.
What's the name of the first executive director listed?
Yvette Wong.
Mr. Finkel said, could we go to the next page, please? And what's the name of the next executive director listed?
Max Krasner.
At the time you were considering whether to invest in GTV, did you have an understanding of what the relationship was, if any, between Miles Gua and Max Krasner?
No, I have no idea.
Mr. Finkel said, okay. Could we go to page 15, Ms. Loftus? Can you read who's listed as non-executive directors?
Darren Blanton and Aaron Mitchell.
Mr. Finkel said, if we could go back one page to 14, please, Ms. Loftus. And can you read the non-executive directors listed here?
Steve Bannon, Kyle Bass.
Mr. Finkel said, if we can go, please, to page 17. Ms. Chen, at the time that you invested in the GTV private placement, what was your understanding about whether or not you and your husband were an accredited investor?
My understanding is we met the accredited investor requirements, and qualified for it.
And as a result, well withdrawn? Mr. Finkel said, could we go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus? So you see where it says risk factors at the bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Finkel said, can you flip through that, please, Ms. Loftus? Did you review those risk factors before you invested in GTV?
Yes.
And what impact, if any, did the risk factors have on your decision to invest?
Not any impact.
Why not?
Because in my view back then, those were standard language and that I trusted what Miles Gua said in the video, there are no risk, only huge returns.
The court said, What do you mean by standard language?
The witness said, like in a legal document, it oftentimes would have the language talk about risk.
Mr. Finkel said, "We can take that down, Ms. Loftus." What was more important to you, the memo that we just looked at or what Miles was said in his videos?
What's more important to me?
When you were considering whether to invest in the GTD private placement, what was more important? The memo we just looked at or what Miles was said in his videos?
Miles was said in his videos.
Why?
Because I trusted him, I trusted what he said, I trusted that he is a wealthy person. And I trusted that he's a trustworthy person. I trusted what he said, that I am just his sisters. He want me to be rich. I trusted that he never lied, he's a very truthful person. So I trusted every single word he said about GTV investment.
Ms. Chen, if you had known that the money you sent for the GTD private placement would be used as part of a $100 million investment in a hedge fund in the name of Miles Guo's son, would you have sent any money to GTV?
No, absolutely not.
If you had known that your investment wasn't guaranteed despite what Miles Guo said in his videos, would you have sent any money to GTV?
No, absolutely not.
Did you receive any stock certificates?
I was able to log into a website to be able to pay for 2 papers that would have the share amounts on the paper.
And did you order those papers?
Yes.
How much did they cost?
$100.
Where exactly did you send your GTV? Well, how much money did you invest in the GTD private placement?
Close to $200,000.
And to what entity did you send that money to?
Soraka Media.
What instructions did you? Well, how did you know to send to Soraka Media?
Because Miles Guo sent a document link to my husband through the WhatsApp chat. And when we click the web app, or the link, it takes you to a document that has wire instruction information.
Mr. Finkel said, "Your Honor, may I approach the witness?"
The court said yes.
Mr. Finkel said, "Your Honor, I've handed Ms. Chen a binder which contains the following documents in the VB series: 14, 24, 26, 27, 29, 31, and 33. Ms. Chen, can you please flip through that binder and let me know when you're done?"
Yes, I did.
Do you recognize the documents in that binder?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
Those are the documents I provided.
And what do those documents relate to?
Related to Miles Guo's fraud scam.
Mr. Finkel said, "Ms. Loftus, if we can pull up Stip 21. Your Honor, the government offers the stipulation into evidence, Stip 21.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit Stip 21 received in evidence.
Mr. Finkel said, Stip 21 reads, "It is hereby stipulated and agreed."
Ms. Schrofa said, "Your Honor, could Mr. Finkel slow down because I think the translator is having trouble."
Mr. Finkel said, "I'm happy to slow down."
The interpreter said, "Thank you."
The court said, go ahead.
Mr. Finkel said, "It is hereby stipulated and agreed by the parties in the below chart. The exhibit listed under column A contains text, audio, or video in a foreign language. In the below chart, the exhibit listed under column B and their subparts is a true and accurate translation of the audio or text contained in the exhibit and their subparts listed under column A." And if we can go to the next page. Please, Ms. Loftus. And in column A, there is listed VB 24, 13, 10, 27, and 24T, 13T, 10T, 27T. Your Honor. At this time the government offers the documents in the binder, which are VB 13, 14, 24, 26, 27, 29, 31, 33, and their corresponding translations as stipulated to by the parties, which are VB 24T, 13T, 10T, 27T.
The court said, they are admitted.
Government's exhibits VB13, VB14, VB24, VB26, VB27, VB29, VB31, VB33 received in evidence. Government's exhibits VB10T, VB13T, VB24T, VB27T received in evidence.
Mr. Finkel said, we can take that down, Ms. Loftus.
By Mr. Finkel.
Ms. Chen, when did you first learn about something called G clubs?
I first learned about it in around about October 2020.
And at first, Ms. Chen, what did Miles Guo say, if anything, about G clubs?
If I remember, I think he talked about it as a membership.
Did you send money for AG club's membership?
No, never ever.
Did you send money to a company called Crane?
Yes.
Why did you send money to a company called Crane?
Because Miles Guo promoted opportunities to add more GTV share, and in order to do so, Miles Guo asked us to contact the farm to complete investment into additional GTV share. So we contacted the MOS farm and was given a bank account of Crane.
What's MOS?
Mountains of Spice Farm.
And what was your understanding of who the leader of the Mountains of Spice Farm is?
Back then it was low.
Ms. Schrofa said, are you asking who the leader is now or in what year?
What is your understanding of? Yeah, what is your understanding of who the Mountains of Spice's leader is? Ms. Chen?
Ms. Schrofa said, same objection.
The court said, are you asking is or was?
Mr. Finkel said, well, I think it's the same, but at the time that you were considering sending money to Crane, who was the leader of the Mountains of Spice Farm?
Back then it was Long Island Brother.
Did you see Long Island Brother and Miles Guo appear together in videos?
Yes, all the time.
What is a farm?
The farm, in my opinion, is the entity that Miles Guo asked people to form to help the followers to join the farm to complete the investment.
At the time you were considering, Ms. Chen, sending money to Crane for additional GTV shares, what was Miles Guo saying, if anything, in his videos about the value of GTV?
Miles Guo said he had independent valuation company did a valuation of the GTV business. It has already been appreciated. I don't remember the exact how many times, maybe 10 times or so. But it is high enough to attract me to send more money for additional GTV shares.
And did Miles Guo explain why, in order to get additional GTV shares, you had to go through the farms and Crane instead of just sending it to Soraka as you had previously done?
I don't recall he did so.
Mr. Finkel said, if we can pull up what's in evidence, on the left side, VB24, and on the right side, VB24T. All right. And as stipulated by the parties, the translations are on the right side of the screen. Ms. Chen, do you recognize the document that's on the left side of the screen?
Yes.
And it says at the top, Crane. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. Where is this document from? What entity?
This document was provided to us by the MOS farm volunteer. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's sent to us through Discord chat by an MOS volunteer.
What's Discord?
Discord is a social media platform that the farm and the Himalaya Alliance are using to gather followers.
Mr. Finkel said, could we go to the next page of each of these, please, Ms. Loftus? And so, Ms. Chen, what was your understanding of what this document was, VB24?
When we signed this document, we thought, this is the document that is required to complete this investment.
And this particular document on the screen, is this the document you signed?
My husband signed it.
What is the red text at the top? What is your understanding of what the red text at the top is?
The red text top says to the G Club customer, meaning the person who made the payment. And put a name on there.
Were these instructions that the farm provided through the Discord channel?
Ms. Shrofa said, objection. The farm did not provide instructions. The farm provided a document.
The court said, sustained.
Was it your understanding that this document provided by the farm were instructions on how to process the payment to Crane?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Mr. Finkel said, we can pull up, please VB26. Whose name is at the top of this document?
My name.
And it says below that G Club's reference number. Do you see that?
Yes.
What is that number for?
That's a number that my husband obtained when he created an order on the G Club's website.
And Ms. Chen, what was your understanding, if any, about the relationship between G Clubs and these additional GTV shares that you wanted to purchase?
My understanding is what Milesqua promoted in his broadcasting video. That those G Clubs membership are free as a benefit if we are buying additional GTV shares.
Do you see at the top it says Crane Advisory Group, Ms. Chen?
Yes.
Did you in fact send money to Crane Advisory Group?
Yes.
Approximately how much?
About $100,000.
And where did that $100,000 come from?
The $100,000 are coming from my home equity.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning the second loan on my house.
Did you get a second loan on your house for the purpose of trying to purchase additional GTV shares?
Yes.
Why?
Because I trusted Milesqua that the GTV shares would provide huge returns. That would provide the return that offsetting the cost of borrowing from my home equity.
Ms. Chen, what was your understanding, if any, about how many G Clubs memberships you would get for the $100,000 you sent to Crane?
My understanding is that will be 2 free G Clubs memberships of Tier 5.
And what was that understanding based on?
Based on what Milesqua emphasized and repeated over and over again in his YouTube. In his broadcasting videos, that if you buy GTV shares, you get G Clubs membership for free. And that's a benefit he's giving to his fellow followers.
Did you ever send money to an entity called ACHK? Mr. Finkel said, Ms. Loftus, we can take that down.
Yes. DB29.
Mr. Finkel said, if we can pull up what's in evidence as. What is this document?
This is the wire receipt or confirmation of the money I sent to HCHK Technology.
And is that you and your husband's name under debit party?
Yes.
And how much did you send to HCHK Technologies?
$110,000.
Why did you send $110,000 to HCHK Technologies?
To purchase additional GTV shares.
And did these additional GTV shares, based on your understanding from Milesqua's videos, come with G Clubs memberships as well?
Yes.
Ms. Chen, did you need multiple G Clubs memberships?
No. I don't need any G Clubs membership because it doesn't offer anything.
What is HCHK Technologies?
I have no idea what HCHK Technologies is.
Around this time, Ms. Chen, I think this document is dated August 2021. What, if anything, was Milesqua saying about whether there was an urgency to purchase additional GTV shares?
The urgency is the opportunity window is closing down. If you want to get more GTV shares, you got to hurry up.
And this urgency that Milesqua talked about, what impact, if any, did that have on your decision to try to purchase more GTV shares?
That stipulated me sending to this account as soon as possible. I believe we received a bank account August 15th and we sent the money on August 16th, the next day.
At the bottom of this document it says, REF, MOS. Do you see that?
Yes.
What does MOS stand for?
Mountains of spice.
Mr. Finkel said, "We can take that down, Ms. Loftus." When you were considering, did you visit the G Club's website?
Yes.
And what did you see?
I see Miles was smoking cigar and on his yacht.
Did you ever get additional GTV shares for the 110,000 you sent to ACHK and the approximately 100 you sent to Crane?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Finkel said, "If we could put up VB14, which is an evidence. If you had known, Ms. Chen, that you wouldn't receive shares for the money you sent to ACHK and the money you sent to Crane, would you have sent that money?"
Of course not.
What are we looking at here in VB14?
This is my husband's G Club's membership account that he was logging into his account and it showed up in his account information.
And did you see this account information on the computer online?
Yes.
And Ms. Chen, did there come a time, if ever, where you or your husband used a G fashion discount from your G Club's membership?
We did.
And how much in G fashion clothing did you purchase, approximately?
I paid about $2,000.
And what was the discount you received?
50%.
Ms. Chen, if you had known that all you would get for the money you sent to ACHK Technologies and Crane Advisory Group was a 50% discount on G fashion items, would you have sent that money?
Sorry. Can you repeat that question again?
Sure. If you had known that for sending $200,000 to Crane and ACHK all you would get is a 50% discount on G fashion, would you have sent that money?
No. The 50% G fashion discount is nothing. The $2,000 I paid for, even after discount, is not well worth the money I paid for it.
Did G Clubs, to your knowledge, offer any hotel discounts?
I'm not aware.
Did you receive anything in the mail from G Clubs?
I received one time a Christmas gift.
What was in the Christmas gift?
Some cookies, coffee, and a coffee mug.
Mr. Finkel said, "You can take that down." And Ms. Loftus, if you can display, just for the witness, VB35. What is this?
That's the coffee mug I received.
Mr. Finkel said, "Government offers VB35.
Ms. Schrofa said, "No objection, Your Honor."
The court said, "It is admitted."
Government's Exhibit VB35 received in evidence.
Ms. Chen, if you had known that all you would receive from G Clubs was a coffee mug, some cookies, coffee, and the G fashion discount, would you have sent money to ACHK and Crane?
No.
Did you learn anything, or did you hear anything from G Clubs about a discount for an F1 race?
No.
Mr. Finkel said, "You can take that down." If we can pull up, please, Ms. Loftus, on the left side VB27 and on the right side 27T. So on the right side is the stipulated translation. Ms. Chen, do you recognize the document on the left side of your screen?
Yes.
Can you just describe to the jury what your understanding of what this document is?
My understanding of this document is the form the MOS Farms asked us to complete to calculate the total of the GTV shares.
What do you mean the total of GTV shares?
Because all the investments, including donations, has GTV share tied to it. Miles was said in the videos and emphasized all different investments plus donation would entitle the follower equivalent GTV share.
So what was your understanding of why there needed to be a calculation?
Because the investments are very complex, they are different investment programs. That's starting to lose track of how many investments each member have completed, so we need to submit this form. including the amount and the payment receipt for the MOS farm to verify, and then calculate a total of GTV shares for each member.
And did you and your husband fill out this form for that purpose?
Yes.
Okay. It says here, number 2, this form is for requirements for the reconstruction project. Do you see that, Ms. Chen?
Yes.
What is your understanding of what the reconstruction project is?
My understanding is because of the SEC litigation, Miles was said about a new GTV platform. Restructuring the old one, so it's called restructuring the GTV.
What do you mean the SEC litigation?
My understanding back then. There was a charge by the SEC and some litigations ongoing with the GTV investment we made back in June 2020.
Ms. Chen, did you receive money from the SEC?
Yes.
And was that part of the fair fund distribution?
Yes.
What do you recall, if anything, Ms. Chen, about what Miles was said on his broadcasts about what people should do with the money they receive from the fair fund from the SEC?
Miles Gua asked people to send back the distribution of the fair funds to Miles Gua-related entities.
And did Miles Gua say anything about whether the people who receive the fair fund distribution should do so quickly or slowly?
Miles Gua said they should do it quickly and set a timeline of 45 days within the receipt of the fair fund distribution.
And what did Miles Gua say, if anything, about why there was a 45-day timeline?
I don't remember exactly what he said, but my understanding is there are Himalaya H coin tied to the investments that are part of the fair funds. If you don't send back the money within the 45-day timeline, the Himalaya H coin that is allocated to the members, based on the investment that they were able to purchase at 10 cents per coin, will be gone.
Mr. Finkel said, Ms. Loftus, if we can go to page 3 of these documents. And looking at the English version, Ms. Chen, do you see at the bottom it says, Apple Coin G1? Have you successfully purchased G1 Apple Coin?
Yes.
What was that?
My understanding. That was an initial version of the digital coin that is available to purchase from Apple Store.
Had you purchased the G1 Apple Coin?
No, I did not.
Mr. Finkel said, okay. Could we go to the next page of each, Ms. Loftus? And so is this form that we're looking at, Ms. Chen, the answers you provided to the questions on this form? No. For example, under G dollar?
Sorry. Can you repeat your question again?
Absolutely. You see where it says, no under. Did you successfully purchase G2 and not ask for a refund or already get a refund? Do you see that?
Yes.
That. No. Is that you and your husband's response?
Yes.
Okay. And then for number 4 it says, old chair. Are you an owner of an old chair? And you selected, yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's an old chair?
So the old chair, in my understanding, were the initial GTV shares investors. We were in contact directly with Miles Gua to get the wire instructions to send the money to the Soraka Media. And there was a minimum investment requirement of $100,000, and to meet that requirement, it is considered one of the old chair, and then across all the farms, there are about a total of 1,300 old chairs.
And that number at the bottom? The 198,700. What does that number represent?
That number represents the money I sent to Soraka Media for a total of 90, for this dollar amount here.
Okay. Ms. Chen, did you participate in the farm loan program?
No, I did not.
Mr. Finkel said, okay. Could we go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus? And over here, does that not work? Okay. It says, GC order number. What order number did you place there?
This is an order number that is the same as the one we completed for that crane compliance package. So that's a number my husband obtained after he created order at the G Club's website.
Mr. Finkel said, "Could we go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus?" And so here, for number 8, it says G Club card. Do you see that at the bottom?
Yes.
Mr. Finkel said, "Okay." And Ms. Loftus, we could go to the next page. And you selected? No. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you select no?
Because I'm buying additional GTV shares, not purchase G Club membership.
Mr. Finkel said, "Go to the next page, please." And then for 12 it says summary. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it says, your total investment USD. Total investment equals G1 plus G2 plus old chair plus original VOG/Phoenix plus borrowing from Himalaya New York MOS plus borrowing from other farms plus actual purchase of G Club plus frozen amount in other farms plus donation amount. Do you see all that?
Yes.
What was your understanding of what that math equation was for?
To calculate total GTV share.
And what did it mean? Frozen amount in other farms. Do you know?
My understanding is there are certain farm loans, called frozen by the local government. So they are defined as frozen amount in other farms outside MOS farm.
Mr. Finkel said, "Could we go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus?" And here, 413-2, right in the center it says, your plan for investment. Do you see that?
Yes.
And what did you select?
I selected to participate in investment through card project. So the translation here is not accurate. It's not purchase card and equities. It's distribute cards and equities.
Ms. Schrofa said, objection. She has no qualification to translate. The document speaks for itself and the document.
The court said, I'm going to sustain the objection.
What is your understanding of why you selected the third button?
Because I read the Chinese version. In the Chinese version, it said to participate in investment through card project. In Chinese version, it means distribute card and equity shares.
And the other two selections, only purchase G Club card or only for investment. Can you explain what you understood those options to mean?
Yes. Those option means it's a GTV share investment, and the G Club card is a benefit provided for free. And you have the option of voluntarily giving up this benefit of free G Club membership, so therefore, the second option, meaning only GTV shares, you're giving up the free benefits of G Club membership.
So you thought that you were buying shares?
Ms. Schrofa said, objection to the leading.
Mr. Finkel said, I didn't finish my question.
The court said, he hasn't gotten to the question yet. Go ahead.
Ms. Chun, you sent money to ACHK and Crane, correct?
Yes.
Continued on next page. By Mr. Finkel.
And what was your understanding of what you would get for sending money to those two entities?
GTV shares.
Would you get anything else in addition?
G Club membership for free.
You can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Chun, did you ever join a farm?
Yes.
Which one?
MOS farm.
Did you volunteer for that farm?
Yes.
What were the nature of the work you did as a volunteer for the MOS farm?
My work was to re-verify the Himalaya H coin that was allocated to each member at ICO price at 10 cents per coin, to confirm if that allocation was accurate.
How many hours did you spend volunteering for the MOS farm?
On average, about 40 hours a week.
Were you also working at this time?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How did you find time to do all that?
I don't sleep and I take vacation hour from work to do this volunteer work.
Why did you decide to spend so much time volunteering for the MOS farm?
Because Miles asked us to volunteer. He asked us not just invest, but also to do volunteer work. And also back then my H-coin allocation, there's a miscount of my past investment. So I had concerns of other members' investment could got miscount for the H-coin they are deserving for. I know every dollar those fellow followers sent to Miles are hard-earned money. And I don't want them to have the same situation as me of their hard-earned money got sent to Miles and they're miscounted.
When did you start volunteering for the MOS farm?
In March 2022.
When approximately did you stop?
March 2023.
Did Miles say where he was located during the various videos that you watched about him talking about these investment projects?
My understanding is the rooftop condo at the Netherlands Sherry Hotel in Manhattan. And also his house in Greenwich, that house he has bought long time ago.
Ms. Loftus, can you pull up C205 which is in evidence? While that's being pulled up, Ms. Chen, did you ever see Miles appear in a video with a car?
Yes.
What did the car look like?
A red color sports car.
What kind of car was it, do you know?
I know it's a sports car, looks very expensive, but I don't know exact what it is.
What did Miles say, if anything, about that car?
That's his car.
Can you scroll down a little bit, Ms. Loftus? Do you recognize the individual in the sunglasses and the hat?
Yes.
Who is it?
Miles
Do you recognize that flag in the back?
Yes.
What is it?
The flag of New Federal State of China.
Based on what Miles would say in his videos. Do you have an understanding of where this video was recorded from?
My understanding this is from the rooftop condo at the Sherry Netherlands, that expensive hotel in Manhattan.
We can take that down. What is G-Bank?
G-Bank is another investment opportunity Miles promoted as the bank that has the digital currency license that can complement the Himalaya exchange to settle between digital currency and the fiat currency. It is very lucrative, and they were able to acquire it because William J. is very influential in the finance world. He has his connections to be able to allow them to purchase this G-Bank successfully.
Did you participate in any video conferences about the G-Bank?
Yes.
And was Miles a part of those conferences?
Yes.
Was William J.
William J. attended separate WebEx call from Miles
What, if anything, did Miles about G-Bank?
Miles said the G-Bank is the bank that has the digital currency license. It's very rare to get digital currency license. It's going to forming the future of the H-coin Himalaya exchange ecosystem to complement it. It's going to be very lucrative, have a very bright future. And that is the type of assets you can passing down to your kids and your kids' kids for many generations. It's a rare opportunity that can only appear one time in your life. You will become initial shareholder of the G-Bank if you make that investment.
Did Miles mention anything about a casino in the context of the G-Bank?
Yes.
What did he say about a casino?
I don't remember clearly what he said. But I think opportunity presented at the beginning, including G-Bank and the casino investment. And later the casino investment didn't go through, so it dropped.
Ms. Schrofa said, I didn't get that last part.
Mr. Finkel said, didn't go through so it dropped. Ms. Chen, what did Miles say, if anything, about whether he was investing his own money into the G-Bank?
Miles said the institutional investors have lot of money to purchase the G-Bank. They have already completed the G-Bank acquisition with all the money. They don't need our money at all. They have way more enough money. That our money is nothing to the institutional investors he has to acquire the G-Bank.
Did you invest in G-Bank?
Yes.
How much money did you invest into G-Bank?
$300,000.
To what entity did you send that $300,000?
Hamilton Opportunity Fund.
You ever heard the song, Ms. Chen, H coin to the moon?
Yes.
Where have you heard it?
I heard it on Getter. I heard it on Apple iTunes.
Did you purchase it on Apple iTunes?
Yes.
How many times did you purchase H coin to the moon on Apple iTunes?
About 600 or 700 times.
Why did you purchase it so many times?
Because Miles Gua asked us to download many times of this song to boost up the ranking in the iTunes chart.
What do you mean to boost up the ranking in the iTunes chart?
So that it shows the top in iTunes that everyone would know H coin to the moon song.
What did that phrase mean to you, to the moon?
Meaning the price will go skyrocketing.
What did Miles Gua say, if anything, in his videos about H coin?
Miles Gua said H coin is better than Bitcoin.
What is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a very valuable cryptocurrency.
What did Miles Gua say H coin was?
A cryptocurrency.
Did Miles Gua mention anything about H coin being on the blockchain?
Yes.
What did Miles Gua say, if anything, about H coin in the blockchain?
Miles Gua said H coin is the most advanced technology of blockchain. It's better than any current digital currency in the current markets.
And what impact did those statements about H coin having the most advanced blockchain technology have on you? If any?
That influenced my decision of buying H coin, that make me believe that H coin will be very valuable.
What, if anything, did Miles Gua say about whether H coin was backed by gold?
Miles Gua said H coin has 20% gold as a reserved backup.
And what impact did those statements that H coin has a 20% gold reserve have on your consideration whether to buy H coin?
That is critical to me. That sold me the idea that what he promoted, that H coin is better than Bitcoin. It is going to be more valuable than Bitcoin because it has a gold reserve while Bitcoin does not.
What is your understanding of the association, if any, between the Himalaya Exchange and Miles Gua?
Miles Gua created Himalaya Exchange and he owns it.
Did you invest in H coin?
Yes.
Approximately how much money did you spend purchasing H coin?
I spent about $530,000 to purchase H coin.
Why did you decide to purchase H coin?
Because back then Miles Gua said the H coin will go up to $100 in a few weeks very soon.
Ms. Chen, if it had turned out that instead of being backed by gold H coin was backed by dollars instead of gold, would that have mattered to you?
Of course it matters.
Why?
Because if it's only backed by dollars, not the gold, it means it's not going to be better than Bitcoin. It's not going to be that valuable. It's not going to be worth me thinking about making investment in H coin.
Did Miles Gua say anything about whether investing in H coin or H dollar was guaranteed?
Miles Gua said about, for people like me that purchase the H coin at the very high price. And later on the price dropped to even half or less than half. Miles Gua will compensate for all their losses we incurred through the purchasing the H coin.
Did you visit the Himalaya Exchange website?
Yes.
Did you see anything called white paper on the Himalaya Exchange website?
I may have seen that.
Did you read it?
I read it.
And what was your understanding of what the white paper meant?
My takeaway from it is there are challenges out there in current cryptocurrency market.
Ms. Shrofa said, "I'm sorry. Could I have that respond read back?"
Record was read.
What do you mean by challenges?
Challenges about the price of the digital cryptocurrency, the challenges about the security. The current cryptocurrency are not that secured, the challenges about the cost, the current cryptocurrency are costly. So those are the challenges of the current cryptocurrency in the market. And H coin is created to overcome all those challenges. It gon be the most secured, affordable, efficient currency that would be the future of all the cryptocurrency.
When you decided to purchase H coin, Ms. Chen, did you think you were purchasing cryptocurrency or credits?
I was thinking I was purchasing cryptocurrency.
Were the farms involved in your purchase of H coin?
They are involved when I purchased the H coin at the ICO, the initial currency offering, at 10 cents per coin.
What is the H coin lockup?
The H coin lockup, in my understanding, is the ICO of the initial currency offering at 10 cents per coin are locked up for a period of time, that the fellow followers are not allowed to sell them.
If we can pull up what's in evidence as VB33. Do you recognize this, Ms. Chen?
Yes.
What is it?
That's my Himalaya Exchange account.
What is your understanding, if anything, of why it says 130,000 HDO and 0 HCN?
That's the balance of my account.
What is your understanding, if any, of the difference between HDO and HCN?
Back then, my understanding that HDO is 1-to-1 to US dollars, and HCN is the cryptocurrency.
And when you sent money into, how did you send money into the Himalaya Exchange?
I log into the account and it provides you payment instructions of the bank account to send the money. And it also include a reference number that is specifically for me to add that reference number when I wire the number to that bank account.
What state were you in when you logged into the Himalaya Exchange to send money?
I use the virtual private network, the VPN.
Ms. Shrofa said, the question was what state she was in. Move to strike.
The court said, if you can answer what state.
I live in Virginia.
Were you in Virginia?
Yes.
What's a VPN?
Virtual private network.
Why did you use a VPN to log into the Himalaya Exchange?
Because MilesGua asked us to VPN to log into Himalaya Exchange.
What is your understanding? MilesGua asked you to use a VPN to log into the Himalaya Exchange from the United States.
Because my understanding is I need to log in from a country outside of US to get into the Himalaya Exchange account.
When you sent money to the Himalaya Exchange, did you think you were buying H dollar or H coin?
I send in US dollars that become equivalent HDO, and I use HDO to purchase HCN.
You can take that down. If we can put up Z10 at page 2. Ms. Chen, what did MilesGua say, if anything? About A10?
MilesGua promoted another investment, called A10. I don't understand what it is. MilesGua said it include 5% of Govt and 5% of Himalaya Exchange.
If you can just scroll up a little bit, Ms. Loftus, just to the date. When you first learned about A10. In what manner did you first learn about A10?
Sorry. When you ask me what matters?
How did you first learn about A10?
MilesGua broadcasting video on Govt.
After learning about A10, Ms. Chen, what impact did that have on you?
When he promoted A10, I'm confused.
Why?
Because why is another investment? It feels to me that just keep asking us to give money to investment. Just keep draining out our pocket, is always giving, investment, but where is the return? Why keeping giving money out? When is the money coming in as a return?
Did you invest in the A10?
No.
Did you try to get your money back from the other investments that you had made from MilesGua's videos?
Yes.
What steps did you take to try to get your money back?
For the G-Bank investment, I contacted the farm manager of Hamilton Opportunity Fund, David Fallon.
And what did David Fallon tell you, if anything?
David Fallon did not respond. His lawyer in UK, James, responded to me.
What did James say?
James said,
Ms. Shrofa said, all of this is hearsay.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Sorry.
You can answer. What did James said?
Jim said your money is part of the DOJ freeze order.
And what response did you have to that, if anything?
My response is, I don't believe so because I sending the money back in January 2022. The money was not frozen till September 2022. There are 8 months in between the time I send in the money till the time the money is frozen. I believe there are money outflows. The money I sent to the account is no longer in that account when DOJ frees that account.
Did you try to get your money back from G Club?
I contact G Club for refund.
What did G Club tell you?
The G Club customer services provided me an email address to contact the legal department of G Club.
Did you contact that email address?
I contact the email address and completed the forms that requested to cancel the G Club membership.
What did G Club tell you, if anything?
G Club legal team did not respond to my request at all.
Did you contact anyone else trying to get your money back?
I contacted Milan to ask about the G Bank investment.
What did Milan tell you?
Milan told me that my money is frozen as part of the DOJ order.
Did you try to redeem and get cash out of the Himalaya exchange?
Yes.
What happened then?
I request a redemption I believe back in May 2023. And 2 months later I receive a notice that the request is cancelled, no more redemption.
You can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Chen. Did Miles Guo ever talk in his videos about being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP?
Yes.
What, if anything, would he say about being targeted by the CCP?
He said he's a target.
Did you invest in the Miles Guo investments because he said he was being targeted by the CCP?
No.
Why did you invest in the Miles Guo's investments?
Because I want to make money. He promised huge return with no risk.
Of the money that you invested, how much have you gotten back?
I got back the SEC Fair Fund distribution about 180,000 or something.
In total, how much money did you invest?
I invest almost 1.3 million.
So how much are you still owed?
About 1.1 million.
Ms. Shrofa said, objection to the word owed.
The court said, overruled.
Ms. Chen, if it were true that Miles Guo was targeted by the CCP, would you still want your $1.1 million back?
Yes.
If it were true that Miles Guo was targeted by the CCP, does that change your view on whether you're still owed $1.1 million?
No, it would not change my view.
What does Miles Guo's being targeted withdrawn? Ms. Chen. Does the fact that the CCP may have targeted Miles Guo, what impact, if any, does that have on your experience investing in the Miles Guo projects?
It has no impact. Fraud is a fraud. It has no impact with anything else.
If it's true that Miles Guo was targeted by the CCP, does it make what he did to you okay?
Ms. Shrofa said, objection, assumes facts not in evidence.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
The witness said, sorry, am I answer or?
The court said, yes, you answer.
Can you repeat the question? And I couldn't hear that attorney very well. Do you mind putting the mic closer to you?
Ms. Shrofa said, most people don't have trouble not hearing me, but sure. I objected and the judge overruled my objection.
Okay, then, I got distracted. Do you mind repeating the question again?
No problem. Ms. Chen, if it is true that Miles Guo was targeted by the CCP, does that make what he did to you okay?
No, he damaged my life.
How so?
He lied to me by.
The court said, all right. I have to interrupt now. I have told the members of the audience I do not want laughing. I do not want noise. You must be respectful in this courtroom or I will have you ejected. Go ahead, please. You were answering. I interrupted. You can read back what she has already stated.
Record was read.
Milesgua lied to me and gained my trust by emphasizing and repeating over and over again that he's very honest, trustworthy person. He never lied. He brainwashed me into believing him by telling his story that made me believe that he's a very nice, kind, caring person. He lied to me to make me believe that he cares about me as his sister. He lied to me to make me believe that he's willing to share his wealth with me as his sister. And he took advantage of my hope. Of my hope for providing a better life for my older parents and young children by promising huge returns with zero risk. He depicted a beautiful future for my family that deceived me in giving all my money, all my hard-earned money and all my hard-saved money to him to pay for his families, his daughters, his sons. Lavish and extravagant life. Milesgua is a liar. He's a cheater. He's shameless and heartless cheater and fraudster.
Do you see Milesgua in the courtroom here today?
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, I stipulate Mr. Gua is seated to my left.
The court said, all right.
Is that Milesgua?
Yes.
Mr. Finkel said, nothing further.
The court said, cross-examination.
Cross-examination. By Ms. Shrofa.
Good afternoon, Ms. Chen.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm a little tired, but let's see. Ms. Chen, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury who is Ivy 6538?
That's my nickname at MOS Farm.
Let me show you.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, can we approach for a moment?
The court said yes.
Continued on next page. At sidebar.
Mr. Finkel said, maybe this isn't an issue, but especially in light of what's been happening in the gallery today. I certainly hope that Ms. Shroff is not just going to go through personal identifying information of the victim from the witness, which would be inappropriate and just a way to harass her. So I raise this only at sidebar to make sure there will be nothing else in terms of her personal identifying information.
The court said, I feel confident that she would not do that. Isn't that correct, Ms. Shroff?
Ms. Shrofa said, I should hope so, Your Honor. I have deep respect for the court's ruling. And I'm happy to lay out what I was trying to do. What I was going to do is show the handles that she used during the time that she was active in the community. And before I forget, I just want to say that what the audience does, we don't have control over. There are certain people in this audience that we have specifically asked, do not be here, for example. We've even tried to communicate with those people's lawyers that they should not be here. So to attribute anything to us is really, I don't know where that's going, but I'm just putting it out there. We're not friends. We have no control over who's in the audience. Let me get back to Ivy. Ivy is a handle that she used. I'm going to show her a photo of the handle. I'm also going to show her the photo of the handle of her husband. The government knows this because the government has emails from somebody named Allwell. I plan to show a handle photo of somebody named Octopus. I plan to show a photo of somebody named Faithfully. They're open handles. I'm never going to ask her if she's XXXXX. I don't intend to ask her that. I have no intention of helping the jury feel sympathetic for her. That's not my role. I think all of this is proper cross-examination. And if the government doesn't know of these handles, I apologize. But that's not my responsibility.
Mr. Finkel said, First, before I forget, we ask that we seal the answer of her name XXXXX and just put the witness.
Ms. Shrofa said, That's fine. You can just take out the name from the sidebar. I do note this, Your Honor. Her last name is Chen. When the jury was picked, XXXXX was one of the names we cited. If somebody really wanted to put 2 and 2 together, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to do that.
Mr. Finkel said, We don't have to help people do it. We should protect the victims. They have a statutory right to such protection.
The court said, it's also an extremely common name.
Mr. Finkel said, If I could respond to what Ms. Shroff said?
The court said, go ahead.
Mr. Finkel said, I don't think there's any relevance of going through the various handles that she used with the farms about which she is now testifying and telling things about what happened in the farms. It should be excluded because it's just designed to harass the witness. It's entirely fine for Ms. Schroff to say, "Did you use handles? Did you use different login names?" And I suspect the answer to those questions would be yes. If she wants to put Fei Fei's username in front of her, fine. If she wants to put Octopus's name in front of her, fine. And make the point, I'm sure it's a very important one, that she used handles just like Octopus and Fei Fei. But to use the specific names that this witness used, which I think is in our 3500. It says that she's nervous about being found out of her handles. And in fact,
Ms. Schrofa said, "There's no such thing."
Mr. Finkel said, "Please don't interrupt me. Your Honor may recall that in one of the bank records it said MOS. And there is a line redacted. The line redacted was her MOS. Her Mountain of Spices ID number, because she doesn't want the Mountain of Spices people to go after her. Like they went after Luke Despens and his daughter and his son-in-law. And so I object to the use of these usernames and questioning as to specificity, because it was just designed to harass this victim."
Ms. Schrofa said, "It is not."
The court said, "Let me understand something. Are you saying that all of these usernames are associated with her?"
Mr. Finkel said, "I don't know, but apparently Ms. Schroff believes that these two usernames are associated with her. It's not the association that Ms. Schroff is trying to draw out based on what she just represented to your Honor. It's the point that she used usernames as opposed to her true name. So that point is fine to make, and it could be made in a generic fashion and have the same dramatic impact on the jury as using the specific ones."
The court said, "How is it that you know that these fake names will enable members of the public to identify her?"
Mr. Finkel said, "Because that's how the community knows her, in the same way that the community knew Yili as Mulan. The community knows her by this identity. And I know it is her identity because Ms. Schroff asked the question, and she said yes. And I suspect that there's going to be a slew of this. This is the government's objection. If we're overruled, we're overruled. That's fine. But this is a point that we felt is important to make."
Ms. Schrofa said, "May I just clarify?"
The court said yes.
Ms. Schrofa said, "So the handler is linked to the name under which she is testifying. She's testifying under her own name, right?"
Mr. Finkel said, "Yes."
Ms. Schrofa said, "That's what it's linked to. She engages with people under that handle. She sends out text under that handle. She sends out emails with that handle. She filled out her volunteer hours with that handle. She talks to H-Coin people with that handle. And I intend to very properly march through that evidence with this witness. I will never say that this person is associated with XXXXX, which is what the court prescribed me from doing."
The court said, "Is there anything that links any of those names to XXXXX?"
Mr. Finkel said, "Your Honor, I'm not sure. That's the candid answer. What I do know is that the community uses these handles to identify people, and that's how they find people. That's how all this works. That's how the enterprise is structured. Everyone is known by Fei Fei or Feather or Octopus or Saturn or what have you. If Ms. Schroff wants to put specific statements to her, okay. But to go through each and every ID, we object because we think that's harassment."
The court said, "How many IDs do you think that she has?"
Ms. Schrofa said, "I don't think she has more than IV and the number. That's her ID. That's how she communicated with her everyone, and it's not linked through the name XXXXX. I have exhibits to show her with that ID, and I have exhibits to show her with that handle. That is her handle. She also uses multiple Gmail accounts, right? So the government has literally redacted the entire account. We ask that at least it make clear, the document make clear, that she's copied on the email. They refused. So I don't care that her actual email shows. Some of the evidence, the truthfulness of the evidence is She got a copy of that document.
The court said, so what I understand you to be saying is that you want to ask whether she goes by a particular handle. One handle?
Ms. Schrofa said, that's it, one handle.
The court said, you also want to ask whether she is really affiliated with other handles?
Ms. Schrofa said, no, her interactions with the other handles.
The court said, I find that to be acceptable.
Continued on next page. In open court.
The court said, go ahead.
By Ms. Schrofa.
I was asking you about IV 6538, correct?
Yes.
Is that a handle you use, ma'am?
That's just a nickname that I had for the MOS farm registration.
And did you tell the government about that MS farm registration that you used?
I did not.
Let's pull it up just for the government and the witness, please. Do you recognize Defense Exhibit 7010?
That's my Discord registration.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, the offense moves DX 7010 into evidence.
Mr. Finkel said, I object for the reasons described at sidebar.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 7010 received in evidence.
Ms. Schrofa said, if I could publish to the jury. Who is Allwell 5921?
That's my husband Discord registration number.
And let me show you DX 7011. Do you recognize that document?
Yeah.
Is that DX 7008?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
That's my husband's Discord registration number, as being or registering on any social media platform they use a nickname.
Ms. Schrofa said, and we move DX 7008 into evidence.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, can we approach?
The court said, all righty.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, I'm sorry to belabor this, but this is different from what Ms. Schroff had told Your Honor.
Ms. Schrofa said, those are the two handles.
Mr. Finkel said, Ms. Schroff is doxing this witness. What this community does in this enterprise is they attack people online, on Twitter, on Discord, and other social media channels. She's putting into evidence just the handle to make it a point, so all the people in the courtroom and everyone else know how to go after her and her husband. This is entirely inappropriate. This has nothing to do with the reasons that Ms. Schroff articulated here at the sidebar just a moment ago. This is pure harassment and doxing.
The court said, Mr. Finkel, if I don't let her confront this witness and you get a conviction, it's going to get overturned. She needs to be able to confront the witness. She has come here freely. She stated her name. You may go forward.
Continued on next page. In open court.
Ms. Schrofa said, and we move 7008 into evidence.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 7008 received in evidence. By Ms. Schrofa.
And may we publish to the jury. Ms. Chen, do you know somebody named Octopus?
Yes.
And who is she?
She's the current farm owner of MOS Farm.
And let me show you what is marked as Defense Exhibit 7011. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is it?
That's Octopus's Discord information.
Ms. Schrofa said, and we like to move 7011 into evidence.
Mr. Finkel said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 7011 received in evidence. By Ms. Schrofa.
Could you tell the members of the jury who is Faith Knight?
Faith Knight is working at MOS Farm.
And let me show what you is marked as DX 7009. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that the handle for Miss Faith Knight?
Yes, Discord registration information.
Ms. Schrofa said, and we like to move DX 7009 into evidence and publish it to the jury.
Mr. Finkel said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 7009 received in evidence. By Ms. Schrofa.
Can you tell me who Feifei is?
Feifei is someone who is also part of the movement.
And how about little Sarah?
Same here, also part of the movement.
And, Ms. Chen, did you interact with Octopus?
When you say interact, Do you mean I communicated with her?
Did you talk to her over Discord?
Yes, I talked to her over Discord.
How about Faith Knight?
Yes, I talked to her over Discord.
And we're going to come back to that, but you were in a group with them, correct?
I explained earlier I was doing volunteer work.
We will come back to that too, but those are the 3 people who were in the group with you, right?
In volunteer work, there are certain aspects that I communicate to them about my volunteer work.
We'll come back to that. Let's just talk for a moment about your background. You testified on direct that you came to the United States. Was it in 2007?
Yes.
And you were a student in China before you came, correct?
Yes.
You studied at the Shanghai Institute of Foreign Trade, correct?
Yes.
And you studied international business, correct?
That's not correct.
Well, tell me, what did you study?
I studied English.
And did you then study and have a business education?
So when you say I studied and have a business education, do you mean I came to the US for the business education, or can you clarify?
Sure. Did you have any studies in business while you were a student in China?
I studied English, and it's considered business English.
And did you also study accounting while you were in China?
No, I did not.
And then you graduated from Shanghai Institute of Foreign Trade in 2006, correct?
Yes.
You graduated with honors, correct?
Yes.
And you worked in China for a year following graduation, right?
Yes.
You worked as an internal audit analyst, is that right?
No, that's not correct.
You tell me in what capacity you worked?
I worked as assistant.
Assisted to what?
To a department manager back then.
And was that at Huntsman Polyurethanes in Shanghai?
Yes.
And you stayed there until July of 2007, correct?
Yes.
What did you do for Huntsman?
I was doing some assistant type of job.
Did it include accounting?
No.
You came to the United States in 2007, right?
Yes.
And you attended Louisiana State University, is that right?
Yes.
You came here for graduate school, correct?
Yes.
Were you a full scholarship student, Ms. Chen?
Mr. Finkel said, object to relevance.
The court said you may answer.
Yes.
You were part of the MBA program at LSU, correct?
Yes.
You graduated with a master's in business administration, correct?
Yes.
Your specialization while you attended school and got an MBA was internal auditing, correct?
That's correct.
Your husband has a PhD in computer science, correct?
Yes.
And he has a PhD from a university in the United States, correct?
That's correct.
And you are presently employed, correct?
Yes.
You work at a bank, correct?
Yes.
And after LSU and before you started working at this bank, you worked at Deloitte, correct?
Yes.
What is Deloitte?
It's one of the big 4 accounting firms.
And what did you do for them?
I do consulting work.
Did you do risk assessment as a consultant?
I do advisory on the processing improvement and risk management related work.
Let's break that down. Did you have experience in ensuring compliance at Deloitte?
No.
Did you have expertise in assessing risk when you worked at Deloitte?
Mr. Finkel said, scope, relevance, cumulative.
The court said, overruled. You can answer.
Can you repeat that question?
While you worked at Deloitte, and you were there until 2011, correct?
Yes.
Was part of your job duties assessing risk?
It's helping the clients managing the risk.
And what is it that you mean when you say helping clients manage risk? Describe your job for the jury.
So the clients that I work for, they may have different risk out there. So my job is to helping them to identify what those risks are and be able to prioritize in managing them.
And these are the risk of investment, correct?
Of course not.
Well, you tell me what risk you're helping them evaluate?
So the client that have was an oil and gas company.
I'm sorry.
The client I have is in oil and gas industry, so there are potential operational risk. And this is where I'm helping them to evaluate.
You help them evaluate financial risk and
Operational risk.
operational risk. And after that you worked as a senior auditor, correct?
Yes.
And you worked as a senior auditor, and can you just tell the jury generally what a senior auditor does?
The auditor will go to the business, asking for the processes, how it works to pinpoint the potential risk. And then from there identify the controls, and then develop an audit plan to audit the business processes.
And part of your job duties was to write out that process, correct?
Yes.
And then you testified you now work at a bank, right?
Yes.
And what is your job title at the bank?
I'm manager.
Manager of what?
Of risk.
Of compliance risk, correct?
Yes.
So your exact title is you're the manager of compliant risk, right?
Yes.
How many people do you manage?
I manage 5 people.
And part of your job includes conducting annual compliance risk assessments, correct?
Yes.
And there is a process to conducting annual compliance risk assessment, isn't there?
Yes.
And to do the work that you do, you have to pay attention to detail, correct?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection. The court has made a ruling on this issue.
The court said, Ms. Schroff, I want you to be mindful of my ruling, please.
Ms. Schrofa said, I'm simply asking what her process is. To do your assessment, regardless of where you do it, and please don't tell me where. You have to assess operational risk, correct?
Mr. Finkel said, It's an objection, and asked and answered.
The court said, asked and answered.
And you have to idea responsible parties, correct?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection, court's ruling.
The court said, I'm going to allow this. Go ahead.
When you say identify responsible party, can you clarify what are you asking me?
Which parties are undertaking the risk?
That's not necessarily my job. That's not my job.
Okay. Is it your job to review related policies?
No, that's not my job.
How about to set procedures in place?
That's not my job.
How about to consider audits?
That's not my job.
How about to evaluate reports?
That's not my job.
How is it, would you tell the jury, that you ensure that compliance controls are in place?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection, relevance, court's ruling.
The court said, I'll allow the answer. Go ahead.
The assessment we do is more top-down risk assessment coming from the enterprise level to identify what are the top risks out there. So it does not involve the processes you just spoke about.
Well, you tell me what processes are involved?
I have explained. It's a top-down risk assessment.
And what is the risk that you're evaluating?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection, relevance.
The court said, you may answer.
Evaluating the risk of consumer compliance from the consumer protection bureaus to protect the customers from potentially being deceived into the bank practice.
Thank you. Is it also part of your job to create a plan of action?
No.
And how about to make recommendations as to how compliance can improve?
No.
And for how long have you been doing this work, Ms. Chen?
For about 14 or 15 years.
You testified on direct, correct, that you first heard of Miles Gua in 2017, right?
Yes.
And before you heard of Miles Gua, your husband, you testified, was listening to the videos of Miles Gua. Is that right?
Yes.
And when Miles Gua's videos were being watched by your husband, did he tell you what about his videos interested your husband?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection, hearsay.
Ms. Schrofa said, I'm not offering it for the truth.
The court said, you may answer.
Talk about bringing American value of China.
I'm sorry.
Talk about bringing American value to China.
In 2017, was Mr. Miles Gua talking about bringing American values to China?
That's what my husband told me.
Do you know if in 2017 Mr. Gua was talking about disinformation coming from the CCP?
Mr. Finkel said, Objection.
The court said, you may answer.
I did not watch back then. I don't know.
When you first started listening to Mr. Gua, do you recall him talking about corruption in China?
I did.
And did you hear about him talking about the lack of freedom in China?
I don't remember.
Do you remember if he talked about the lack of property rights in China?
I don't remember.
Do you remember if he talked about the lack of choice in China?
I don't remember.
Do you recall if his videos talked about how one could not choose their own jobs in China?
Mr. Finkel said, same objection.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
I don't remember.
In what year, Ms. Chen, did you start listening to Miles Guo's videos?
End of 2018.
And I'm not going to go through the whole list with you, but were any of those topics that I mentioned before topics that you recall in 2018?
It's been so long, I don't remember.
Do you ever recall Mr. Guo talking about the state of affairs in Hong Kong?
I think so.
And what do you recall him saying about Hong Kong?
I don't remember.
Sitting here today, Ms. Chen, would you agree that speaking against the CCP whether in 2017 or in 2024 is risky?
You're asking my opinion?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's risky?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know.
And when you were interacting on Discord, you know what? I'll withdraw that. You decided at some point to join what is called the whistleblower movement, correct?
I joined the farm in 2022.
And before you joined the farm in 2022, is it your understanding that you did not join any movement at all?
So I ask, can you clarify that question in a simple way?
I'll try it this way. What was your first step towards the whistleblower movement?
My first step towards the whistle, I have nothing to do with the whistleblower movement.
Did you have anything to do with the goals of the Rules of Law Foundation?
I donated money.
I was asking you about the goals of the Rule of Law Foundation. Were you familiar with that?
My understanding is helping the people that needs help.
And with that understanding, did you know if Rules of Law Foundation helped bring people to the United States from China?
That I don't know.
Do you know if they helped people in the Ukraine war?
That is my understanding, so I donated money for that help.
And how about providing COVID mask and other masks to people?
That part I'm not sure.
Now, you donated money to Rule of Law Foundation, correct?
Yes.
How much did you donate?
About $30,000.
And do you recall what year you donated in?
So it's between 2020 and 2022.
Well, let's talk about that. In 2020, how much did you donate according to you?
My husband donated a couple of $100s.
For 100 to be precise, right?
I said a couple of $100. I don't remember exactly how much he donated.
How much did you donate in 2020?
Back then, it's a joint donation.
How about in 2021?
I don't remember, maybe also a couple of $100.
And how about in 2022?
About $30,000.
And you donated that in September of 2022, correct?
That's correct.
And before you made that donation, you familiarized yourself with who was on the board of the Rule of Law Foundation, correct?
No, I don't know who's on the board of the Rule of Law Foundation.
So you did not check the Rule of Law Foundation website?
I just opened the website. And I don't know where to find the board of directors, and I don't think that matters to me at that point.
It did not matter to you who was part of the foundation?
You said the board of directors specifically, right?
Yes.
At that time?
The board did not matter?
When you say at that time, what time are you referring to? Can you clarify?
When you made the $30,000 donation in September of 2022.
I did not check who was the board of directors when I made that investment back in September 2022.
Well, let's shift courses if we may. And let's talk about the GTV investment that you testified here on direct testimony. Okay.
Okay.
Now, was it your husband who first decided to invest in GTV or was it you?
It's a joint decision.
And was it a joint decision from the very first moment?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that you heard of the private placement for GTV in April of 2020?
Yes.
And would it also be fair to say that you and your husband were involved in the full process of the investment?
Yes.
And you understood at the time that you were evaluating investing in GTV that the private placement was scheduled to close on June 2nd of 2020, correct?
So you say evaluate to investing, so meaning I was assessing? Can you clarify that question?
You tell me if you assessed.
We trusted Miles Gua, so we invested.
So you did not assess anything other than the trust you had in Miles Gua? That's your testimony?
We trusted Miles Gua said about what the GTV would look like. And we read the documents and confirmed what Miles Gua said would be its competitors and what they're going to use the money for.
Finish your answer, please. Sorry.
I was not sure what you were asking. That's why I was trying to make sure I understand what you're asking there.
Let me try again. You first heard about GTV more than a month before you invested, correct?
Yes.
And you told Mr. Finkel that, right? That you had a whole month to talk about it with your husband between the time you heard about GTV and the time that you actually invested in GTV, correct?
I did not say that. I think what happened is, there's a process it takes to be approved for a GTV investor. So there is certain criteria you have to meet to be able to get the payment information because it was considered privileged. Miles said you have to meet certain requirement to be allowed for this investment. And that requirement validation took about that much time to be validated to be approved.
So it took a whole month from the start of the application for you to be approved, correct?
For us to obtain the bank account information.
So it took a month, right?
That's long time ago. If you say it's a month, about a month.
Let's see if we can help you out. Let me show you what is 3602 to 30 at page 2, and just for Ms. Chen over there. Please just only for the witness. Okay.
Mr. Finkel said, "Is there a failure of recollection?"
Ms. Schrofa said, "That's what she said." Does that document refresh your recollection about a month passing between, you know what? I'll leave you to read the document and then ask my question.
Is this?
The only question, ma'am, is if this document refreshes your recollection?
The court said, as to the time period?
Ms. Schrofa said, as to the timing, Your Honor.
The court said, don't read from it. Just say whether this helps you remember.
You mean about the month? Is that what you ask me, about the month? As I explain, you have a process between you heard about the ATO. You are able to obtain a bank account, send the money. So that's about a month.
And for that month you were waiting for information to come to you, correct?
Yes.
Nobody from GTV was blasting you and saying we've sent you documents. Get back to us, right?
There is a deadline about the investment.
My question wasn't whether there was a deadline. My question was whether anybody from GTV contacted you and said, "Where's your application?"
You're asking me.
If you could please listen to my question. Did anyone from GTV Investments ask you where's your application? For the month that you were waiting. Did GTV reach out to you?
Mr. Finkel said, "I object to the form." What people from GTV Investments? What does that mean?
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
I'm sorry. I still don't quite understand. You're asking, are there any people from GTV Investment contact me about my application or?
Yes.
Yeah, there are people contact me about an application.
And which people were those?
So the broadcasting said about reaching out.
No. Which people at GTV Investment?
Mr. Finkel said, Ms. Schroff should not interrupt the witness.
The court said, let her answer.
Did you understand my question, Ms. Chen?
Sorry, I think for this question, are there any people from GTV Investment contacting me?
The company.
Company contacting me?
Yes.
So Miles Gua contacted us.
Miles Gua never contacted you, correct?
Miles Gua contacted my husband.
You do not know if Miles Gua contacted your husband, correct? You were not part of that contact, right?
My husband.
You only know.
The court said, you have to allow her to answer. You cannot talk over her. Allow her to answer. Go ahead.
My husband was chatting directly with Miles Gua on WhatsApp. And I am next to him hearing Miles' voicemail from the WhatsApp messaging.
Okay. So then it's you were physically present when you hear a voicemail from Mr. Gua, correct?
Yes.
And regardless of his voicemail, you were still waiting for 30 full days to get an account number where you could get your money, correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. How long did you wait between the first time you heard his voice and to the time that somebody actually sent you a bank account number? How long was the wait?
So it's been a while. I wanted to say that we did not first get contacted with Miles Gua. So when I say the full month, it started sending application to Sarah Wei first telling her that we have an interest in investment and it's above 100,000. And we waited a while to hear back, and then Sarah told us we passed the qualification test. And then we were given Miles Gua contact information. So that has been some time past to your question earlier on that 1 month. So by the time we received Miles Gua contact and he sent us the information to make the GTV investment, we made the GTV investment in sending the money very quickly. I think only a couple of days as soon as we received the wire instruction information.
So let's break that down. You contacted Sarah Wei, correct?
Because Miles Gua said in the video to contact Sarah Wei to get the information for completing GTV investment.
Miles Gua told you. We've heard that before. I understand. My question is, you contacted Sarah Wei. Did you contact her or did your husband contact her?
My husband contacted her.
And how long did your husband wait to hear back from Sarah Wei?
It's been some time. I want to say it's been a couple of weeks. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks if I remember correctly, but it's been some time. Maybe between his first contact and got approval.
And for the couple of weeks that you were waiting, do you recall your husband telling you that he had tried to reach Mr. Gua himself?
He doesn't have information to contact Miles Gua.
So your husband did not tell you that, is that right?
He told me. What do you mean he did not tell me that? What's your question again? Are you asking me? Can you repeat your question again?
Sure. By the time that you're waiting to hear back from Sarah Wei, right? Does your husband tell you that he is impatient and trying to reach Mr. Gua?
He did not say that to me.
Now, when you were evaluating what GTV was, did you do any research at all?
Mr. Finkel said, object on the basis of the court's ruling.
The court said, you may inquire as to whether she did any research. You can answer.
When you say research, oh, I listened to his broadcasting video. And then I heard his blueprint about the GTV, and then that's it.
Was it important to you that Calbase was on the board of GTV?
It had some influence.
And you knew who Calbase was, right?
I don't know that well in details, but I know he's an investor.
You know him to be an investor?
I know him being a successful institution investor, private equity. He's successful in investments.
And you testified on direct that you started the GTV investment process on May 11th of 2020, right?
When you say I started a process, can you clarify what you mean when you say?
Contacting Sarah Wei, that was on May 11th?
I don't remember that date.
You don't remember that date?
Mr. Finkel said, asked and answered.
The court said, she has asked the question.
Ms. Shrofa said, sometimes I just can't understand, so I repeat the response.
The court said, so speak into the microphone, please.
On May 12th, 2020 is when you received the private placement memorandum, right?
I don't remember the date.
Did you receive the GTV first private placement memorandum, or was it your husband?
Miles sent the link to that document, and we open a link and look at them together.
And along with the PPM, you were also sent a confidentiality agreement, correct?
We follow the instruction provided and send in whichever document that's required for.
I'm asking you whether you recall receiving the confidentiality agreement?
I think so.
Do you recall receiving the subscription agreement?
I think so.
And do you recall receiving the shareholders agreement?
Maybe. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Do you remember receiving the note along with those documents that said old friends and prospective investors who receive this agreement? Please read it carefully.
I don't remember that.
Do you recall being told that the private placement would end at 11 a.m. New York time on May 26th of 2020?
I don't remember the detail date.
Let me ask you something. When your husband was responding or corresponding with Mr. Gua, you said you were right there, correct?
Yes.
So you recall your husband telling Mr. Gua that he would go and carefully review the agreement and meticulously follow all the requirements stated in it. Do you recall your husband saying that?
Mr. Finkel said, objection, hearsay, and the court's ruling.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
I don't remember that.
Do you recall after that your husband confirming that he had read the conditions for GEV private placement?
I don't remember that.
You testified on direct about what it is to be an accredited investor, correct?
Yes.
And to be an accredited investor, you tell me what was your understanding of that?
A joint income of above $300,000 and an equity of more than $1 million excepting the primary home.
And you had that, right?
Yes.
Do you recall when you first transferred the money after noting that you were an accredited investor?
Yes, I'm an accredited investor.
Do you recall sitting here today whether the investment was made in your name, your husband's name, or both your names?
We sent a couple wires. Some of them are in my name. Some of them are in his name. And some of them are in our joint name.
And, Ms. Chen, just for a moment if I could ask you, you testified on direct, right, that you, well, let me ask you this. Before you invested in GEV, you had bought stock, correct?
No, I have not.
Your testimony is that, not shares, stock?
Mr. Finkel said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Did you ever have an investment where you had lost money? Do you recall that?
I don't remember that.
Well, let me show you 3530 at page 3. See if reading that document refreshes your recollection.
I don't remember, so.
So you do not remember investing in stock or losing money?
Mr. Finkel said, asked and answered. She doesn't remember.
The court said, sustained.
You can take that down. Was it your understanding that GTV was an investment in a startup?
My understanding of the GTV that Miles promoted is private placement.
Private placement of what?
You can buy a share before it goes to the public market.
But for what?
For it to go.
For a startup, right?
Mr. Finkel said, objection. She didn't finish the answer.
The court said, sustained.
Go ahead, finish.
For it to go up 10 times or 100 times, that's what Miles promoted, and I believed back then.
He promoted a private placement and you believed. Is that what you said?
He promoted a private placement that could go up to 10 times 100 times that I believe in what he said.
You said that before. My question is whether you knew what he was talking about. Was it a startup?
Mr. Finkel said, asked and answered.
The court said, you already asked the question about the startup.
Let me show you what Mr. Finkel there showed you on your direct, the private placement itself. Do you recognize GXVK5?
Yes.
And this is the private placement memorandum, correct?
Yes.
And I just want to be sure. I'm asking you, did you read it?
Yes.
You read it page to page, correct?
I read this document.
Entirely?
Mr. Finkel said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Let's take a look at it. Let's go to page 9. And if we could just have the full page shown to her first. You see that page?
Yes.
And you see the bottom paragraph there?
Yes.
It tells you, right, what the next page is going to be about, right?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of what they're talking about in terms of the 200 million new shares?
My understanding is it was holding by Soraka Media 100%. Now Miles will want us to be rich. So he's taking 10% and then giving his share to us to acquire at $1 per share.
Where do you read Miles wants us to be rich in the paragraph I've shown you?
Mr. Finkel said, misstates the testimony. The question was, what was her understanding, not what it said.
The court said, sustained.
My question to you, what does that paragraph state? And I would move to strike, and I will start the question all over again.
The court said, let's move on.
The offering that is on that piece of paper is for 200 million shares in exchange for $200 million, correct?
So you're talking about the one you highlighted there, you ask me?
I'm happy to take the highlight off.
You're asking me if I'm reading it as 200 million for 200 million shares?
That's my question.
So my understanding is that talk about it issue the share at $1 for a total of 20 million new share and maximum can be 200 million new share.
And it tells you, that document told you, right? That it was Soraka that was looking to sell 200 million shares, correct?
My understanding back then was not Soraka selling it. My understanding back then is Miles told us he is finding this opportunity for us for $1 a share. Not saying Soraka is selling it to us.
I understand you've told us many times about your understanding. My question really relates to the document, right, Ms. Chen?
I understand you're asking me about this document, but what I'm telling you is, I agree with you said. I read this document. And when I read this document, I have an understanding of what Miles said about it. So when I read it, I interpret it the way, as Miles was said, and broadcast it in a video. That's why I'm explaining to you my understanding about it based on the time when I read it. Based on the time I got influence from Miles Gua, from his broadcasting video.
The court said, all right, this is the end of the day, so we're going to have to stop. Members of the jury, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't permit anyone else to discuss the case in your presence. Don't read, watch, listen to any source that touches upon the subject matter on this case. Have a good evening.
The law clerk said, jury exiting.
Continued on next page. Jury not present.
The court said, you may step out. Don't discuss your testimony.
Witness temporarily excused.
The court said, please be seated. Is there anything that either party would like to raise before we get started tomorrow morning?
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, I just had one matter to raise if I may. Thank you, Your Honor. Given the court's admonition to the audience during the time the jury was here, I respectfully request that the court just reiterate it now because there is no jury present. And we would have no objection just so that the future testimony is not interrupted in any way. And hopefully things will go smoother. And I don't have to worry about prejudice to the jury. So I would rather it happen now.
The court said, under our system of law, a defendant is entitled to a public trial. That means that anyone can come and sit and listen. However, you must observe courtroom decorum. That means not talking, not laughing, not making faces, not making gestures, just sitting quietly and politely. Anything further from either side?
Ms. Shrofa said, No, Your Honor.
Mr. Finkel said, Your Honor, just briefly. There were two of the court's orders that I was referring to in my objection. One was from the robing room the other day. The other, and I think the court recognized this, is about the sophistication of the investor issue. And specifically Your Honor's ruling at docket 319 at page 17, quoting Your Honor. There is a fine line between properly asking about an investor's sophistication and improperly implying to the jury that the investor should have found out the truth about the alleged misrepresentations. Granting the government's motion and permitting the government may object at the appropriate time if the defendant's questions verges to the latter, meaning implying that the victim should have realized that she was being scammed. And so the objections for today were overruled. That's fine. Tomorrow, if there's additional lines of questioning on that, the government will object. The government reiterates that it would be appropriate in light of the questioning towards Ms. Chen and other victims and other witnesses. We ask the court to consider instructing the jury as to that, which is that an investor's sophistication is not an issue. Investors are not held to having to find out that they were being defrauded. And so we would ask the jury, so that they are not confused as this trial continues, and we move into the defendant's case, that Your Honor instruct them as to that matter.
The court said, so you have my proposed jury charge, which contains a very clear instruction on that issue. Ms. Schroff has not crossed the line. I feel confident that she will not.
Mr. Finkel said, "Thank you, Your Honor."
The court said, "Good evening."
Mr. Finkel said, "Can I ask a question? How much time does Ms. Schroff have left on the cross?"
The court said, "Ms. Schroff?"
Ms. Schrofa said, "Honestly, I'm having difficulty with the witness, so it could easily be 2.5 more hours."
The court said, "How much did you say?"
Ms. Schrofa said, 2 hours.
The court said, "Oh my goodness. That sounds excessive, really."
Ms. Schrofa said, "She's very combative, Your Honor. So I have to be careful. She could implode at any moment."
The court said, "I don't have that sense. She comes across as an intelligent, thoughtful, calm person, so I have no fear of implosion, so I would ask that you reach for efficiency."
Ms. Schrofa said, "I will try my very best, Your Honor."
Mr. Finkel said, "If it's 2 hours, 2.5 realistically, Your Honor, we're not resting until Friday at that point. Tuesday. There is no Friday."
The court said, "We'll have to see. Good evening."
Adjourned to June 27, 2024, at 9 a.m.